Wait a minute. You mean the path of 7877? We haven't even discussed that. Where did you even pull that from, Kate? Well, let's talk about Enoch 74. Then I saw another progress and regulation, which he effected in the law of the moon. The progress of the moons and everything Uriel showed me, the holy angel who conducted them all. Their stations I wrote down as he showed them to me. I wrote down their months as they occurred and the appearance of their light until it was completed in 15 days. In each of its 2 7 portions. Okay, again, Enoch is trying to let you know the moon has 30 days. It's up there the entire time. Its path, its ordained number of days also is 30. 2 7 portions, okay? In each of its 2 7 portions, it completes all of its light at the rising and the setting. On stated months, it changes its setting, and on stated months, it makes its progress on each. In 2, the moon sets with the sun in those 2 gates, which are in the midst, in the 3rd and 4th gate. Remember, 3rd and 4th gate, think of as the equator. It goes forth for 7 days and makes a circuit. 7 days. It again returns to the gate from whence it goes forth. I wonder if Enoch actually ever used the word whence. I don't know. Who knows? And in that completes the whole of its light. Then it declines from the sun and enters in 8 days into the 6th gate from which the sun goes forth. There we got our first 7 and our first 8. Enoch 74 continued. When the sun proceeds to the 4th gate, it goes forth for 7 days until it passes from the 5th gate. Again, it returns in 7 days to the 4th gate, and completing all of its light, declines and passes on by the 1st gate for 8 days. And it returns in 7 days to the 4th gate from which the sun goes forth. Thus I beheld their stations, as according to the fixed order of the months, the sun rises and sets. At those times, there is an excess of 30 days belonging to the sun in 5 years. All the days belonging to each year in the 5 years, when completed, amount to 364 days. And to the sun and stars belong 6 days. 6 days in each of the 5 years, 30 days belonging to them, so that the moon has 30 less days than the sun and the stars. Huh? What? So we know the sun's ordained path. 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31. And Enoch just gave us the moon's ordained path, okay? He tells us that the moon goes forth from the 4th gate for 30 days, passing by the 5th gate, that it then spends 8 days in the 6th gate before heading back to the 4th gate, which takes it 7 days, before heading towards the 1st gate, which takes it 7 days, before staying in the 1st gate for 8 days, and then taking 7 days back to the 4th gate. Plainly meaning, as I said, the moon's ordained path, 7 days, 8 days, 7 days, 7 days, gates 4 and 6. Rinse and repeat for 1 and 4. 7 days, 8 days, 7 days, 7 day, gates 4 and 1. Make sense? Forever running on its chariot, never ceasing or swerving, remember? So Enoch 74 makes this very vague-ish kind of weird statement, or whatever. At those times, there is an excess of 30 days belonging to the sun in 5 years. All the days belonging to each of the 5 years, when completed, amount to 364 days. And to the sun and stars belong 6 days. 6 days in each of the 5 years. 30 days belonging to them. What in the world? Okay, if you've never read Enoch, I believe it's in the very first chapter, very first verse possibly, that he tells us that the book is for a future generation. Okay? And if you've ever read the Bible from beginning to end, you know that Enoch, I believe, Noah, and Abraham, they each sat out for an evening watching the stars to predict how the upcoming year would be. All right? So Enoch, Noah, and Abraham, I believe, knew the Creator's calendar. However, what happened after Abraham? Well, the children of Israel went into bondage in Egypt for 400 years. When Joseph first got there, obviously things were a little rough for him because he, was in jail and all that good stuff. But once Pharaoh recognized his, ordained gifts that the Most High gave to him, and that he was pretty good at what he did, he became, the second in command. Unfortunately, at some point in time, you know, Joseph died, and there came a pharaoh that didn't remember or didn't know or didn't care who Joseph was or the people of Israel. And it may have slowly happened before that, I'm not sure, but the children went into slavery. Now, if you're going to oppress a people, what are you going to do? You're going to strip them of everything that they know and everything that they believe and everything that they practice, at least openly, you know what I mean? So they would have, in the open, in the public, portrayed one persona possibly, and another behind closed doors, the Israelites anyway, for a time period, so to say. So I think once the children went into bondage, as I said, everything was stripped from them, and they were no longer allowed to practice or openly practice their holy days and their Sabbaths and as ordained. And during that time, during that 400-year period, that is, I believe, at some point in time where the Creator's calendar got forgotten, because the Egyptians had their own calendar of timekeeping that they had. So that's my hypothesis on when exactly we lost track of what was supposed to be, of what is going on in the sky, and we lost how to properly read the new moons, how to properly count the days, and how the solar and the lunar portion of the calendar work as one calendar. They're not two separate calendars. There's no 364 solar calendar and a separate 354 lunar calendar. They are one calendar. An excess of 30 days belongs to each star. How, where, what? You can't just, yes. Because of the fact that we rubber stamp every single month with a 29-day lunar count, we are stealing ordained days that belong to the moon, and we are attributing them to the sun. This is man. Obviously, this doesn't actually happen in the universe. But yes, man is stealing from the moon and giving to the sun. So what does this look like on paper as opposed to strictly reading the words? Every single year, 6 additional days, because we count off of 29 days, are given to the sun. So the first year, you know, 365, first of all, we start off with 365 days already, as opposed to 364 days. Okay, so 6 days in year 1, 6 days in year 2 for a total of 12, 6 days in year 3 for 18, so on and so forth. When we know that the moon's ordained path and its allotted days are in a 6-month period, 3 months will have 30 lunar lit nights and 3 months will have 29 lunar lit nights. So we lay it out month 1, if we'll just rubber stamp month 1, 2, and 3 with 30 nights to make it easy. So 30 nights versus 29, there's day 1. 30 nights versus 29 again, there's day 2. 30 nights versus 29 again, there's day 3. Months 4, 5, and 6, because half the year they are correct, there is a 29 day, unless a 28 falls in there. So there's 0 across the board there added. Month 7, 30 days versus 29, there's your 4th day. Month 8, 30 days versus 29, there's your 5th day. And month 9, 30 days versus 29, there is your 6th day. 10, 11, and 12, again, 29 days. Rubber stamping the 29 days because, you know, 365 divided by 12 is 29.4, gives an additional 6 days every single year that we rob from the moon and give to the sun. That is my belief and my interpretation on what Enoch is trying to say to us in that particular verse. In those days, which days? Our days. All right, because if you take 29, the dry cut 29 lunar nights, 12 months out of the year, you only come up with 348 lunar nights versus even being accurate on a lunar calendar of 354 days already. 6-day difference from 354 to 348. Coincidence? I don't think so. 6 days are given over to the sun from the moon every single year. So 6 days times 5 years is 30 days. 6 days times 8 years is 50 days. I hope that makes sense. You'll again hear me discuss 5 years and 8 years shortly. These are referring to two completely different yet sort of similar instances. There'll be two different number sets that'll be given, and you'll be, but wait a minute, crazy lady, you just told me like 3 slides ago or wherever, you know, that there's 30 days to the sun in 5 years. Now there's 50 days, you know, so, but you got to pay close attention. These are days we give to the sun, okay? A few things not to forget as we move forward. Again, like I said, he works in patterns, and he's the author of order. Don't forget that just prior to the 1/7 new moon, the sun and the moon will set together. Not one day, not two, just prior. It could be one day, it could be 2 days. But it does not specify an exact number of days, just prior. This setting time is going to give us our count of either 29 or 30 lunar lit nights, by the way. So that's why it's very important to figure out when the sun and the moon set together. Remember that there are 10 less lunar lit nights in a year, okay? Not 10 less nights of the moon, but lunar lit nights, okay? Every 6 months period, there'll be 5 less lunar lit nights. So if you have a 6-month period with 5 or more lunar less nights when you're doing your count, you're off someplace or you've slid in your months. That's if you're going to count out on a Navy chart to determine future lunar length cycles, okay? Don't forget the moon's pattern of 7, 8, 7, 7, gates 4 and 6, 7, 8, 7, 7, gates 4 and 1. Enoch 74 continued. The moon brings on all the years exactly. Once again, not the sun. Doesn't matter how long it takes for the earth to rotate around the sun, which the earth does not rotate around the sun. But yeah, props to whoever did that mathematical, you know, experiment there, because they just essentially wasted their time. Yeah, they wasted 365.25 of their days out of their life. Great job for them. The moon brings on all the years exactly, that their stations may come neither too far forward nor too backwards a single day, but that the year may be changed with correct precision in 364 days. Again, 364 days. In 3 years, the days are 1,092. In 5 years, there are 1,820, and in 8 years, 2,912. To the moon alone belong in 3 years 1,062 days. In 5 years, it has 50 less days, for an addition being made to the 62 days. In 5 years, there are 1,832 days. For its days in 8 years are less 80 days, which 80 days are its diminution in 8 years. The year then becomes truly complete according to the station of the moon and the station of the sun, which rise and set in them for 30 days. If you remember a couple of verses back, it says, you know, when the sun rises, the moon rises with it, and it goes forth from that gate, in that first month for 30 days, okay? In other words, if your lunar count is a 29 and you think it's the first of the month, or yeah, the first month of the year, you're incorrect. Your first lunar night, your first month will have a lunar count of 30 days also. Obviously, the sun will be up there because nobody ever has issues with the sun, with the exception of the Earth rotating around it for 365.2 days. Everybody has issues with the moon. Remember, the moon has the same length of time as the sun, the 30 days. It's just, it won't have light in it for 30 days all the time. Okay, so why does Enoch specify these days? 1092, 1820, 2912, 1062, 1770 to 2832. Based off of 364 and based off of 354. He's trying to tell you this is what the count should be at 3, 5, and 8 years. All right. However, because we give, 365 days, and every 4th year have a leap year, and because we rubber stamp a 29-day lunar count, this actually gives us a different number. Even 365, without including the 366, gives us a difference of a 3-day count in 3 years, and a 5-day count, a difference in 5 years, and an 8-day count and a difference of 8 years. Not even talking about the, 6 less days given to the moon, 1044, 1740, and 2784. So why does he specify these years and these numbers in these particular years? Well, if you actually do the research and look, we rubber stamp, we give a 13th new moon in a 12-month period in the 3rd, 5th, and 8th year over and over and over again. Count out 29, count out 29, count out 29. You're eventually going to have a backup of 29s, so to say, that are going to spill over into our calendar. So this is why you see a 12-month calendar with 13 new moons. You're not calculating the days correctly. You're given the wrong number of days. And you are not calculating the moon correctly. You're stealing time from the moon and giving it to the sun. All right?
Emma's got your phone.
Again, why does Enoch specify the 3, 5, and 8 years? Well, that's not the only reason he specifies 3, 5, and 8 years. Okay? Not. If you actually look at the calendar and you calculate the days, we are not in the year 2019. We are actually closer to the year 2025. Oh, look, it ends with a 5. You're like, wait, what? No way. You're crazy. Let's crunch some numbers, people. When we crunch the numbers, if you go to, days between dates, and you calculate between 0101, 0001, so what we think of as, BC, the beginning of, AD, the beginning of, okay, to February 8th, 2019, there are a total of 737,100 days. You divide that by 364, boo, 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 you get the year 2025, which happens to end in a 5 every 3rd, 5th, and 8th year, because we have a 13th new moon this year. So you can roughly correlate, hey, it's about, like I said, about 2025. So why February 8th? Well, because it came out to be a nice even number where I didn't have to say, it's the year 2025.362 or whatever. But that's not the only reason. Oddly enough, from February 8th to the first new moon in April, there is exactly a 60-day difference. So not only are we at least 6 years off, there is a 60-day difference between when this mathematical, between dates of 0101 claims that the new year switches over, but there's also a 60-day difference between when it should. So 01010001 didn't actually happen on 01010001. It happened about 60 days prior to 01010001, what we would consider still as BC. What's it mean to us today? Well, basically, if you calculate it out, every 36.4 years, we are losing an entire year. But who's going to notice that? Because, I'm 40 now, almost 41. I don't ever remember one year just dropping off of my life. Do any of you? Probably not. Oh, there's my crows welcoming me this morning. No one would notice it. Why? I'm going to show you why shortly. This drop in time occurs slowly over time, obviously. You're not going to notice something that is slowly taken from you. But essentially, because I wake up, I go to bed, I wake up, I go to bed, it's the 1st of January, it's the 3rd of January, it's the 29th, the 31st, it's still running consecutively. It doesn't feel like any time's lost. But there is. And what's going to happen when 2 years are lost? Well, you're going to be about 70, if you're 0 right now, you're going to be 72.8 years old. So I'm 40 now. I'm probably not going to make it to 112. So I won't even be around by the year the second year is lost. So it'll be, 2 generations after me that somebody may be like, oh my goodness, we've lost a year. I don't know. But you've lost 3 years at 109.2 years. You've lost 4 years at 145.6, 5 years at 182, and 6 years at 218.4. Well, what happened 218.4 years ago? Oh, geez, I don't know. So around around 1800s, just after the 6-month mark, right around there, something was going on. Well, let's have a brief look at some calendar history. Picture it, Sicily, 1924. No, I'm just kidding. But picture it, the early 1800s. But we're going back further than that. All right, first we have to figure out why in the heck did this new Gregorian calendar even take over the Julian calendar to begin with? Because the Julian calendar was the most widely used calendar around the world for many centuries. All right, so why did we get the Julian calendar? Well, thanks to, why did we get the Gregorian calendar? Thanks to a newly elected Pope, Pope Gregory, which was not his original name, by the way. But anyway, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they got their fingers deep in a lot of things, don't they? Anyway, Pope Gregory, by his time of around 1582, discovered that Easter Ishtar was no longer falling after the first solstice, or on the solstice, I'm not sure which, of the month, so they could base Ishtar off of when the solstice was, when the spring solstice was. Nope, it had slidden back. Ishtar had slidden back about 10 days prior to when it should have been occurring. Well, Pope Gregory determined that, Julian's calendar was sliding one day, it erred one day every 128 years. So by the time Pope Gregory was around in 1852-ish, he realized that by then an entire 10 days had slidden from the Julian calendar, so he was going to fix it, because Ishtar Easter is really important. And so he sat down and made up the Gregorian calendar to fix, quote-unquote fix, this 10 missing days over, hundreds of years. Hey, if it's only one day every 128 years, I don't think Caesar did too stinking bad on his calculations. But the Julian calendar had its issues too, don't get me wrong. So he's going to fix it. But that was 1852. You said something happened in the 17 and 1800s. Well, yes, because thanks to world events and Protestantism, the Catholic Church wasn't doing it so hot at the time. The calendar was not widely accepted on a worldwide use, and only a few places picked it up. Those with, the major oppressive Catholic thumb on them were using the calendar. The Gregorian calendar, that is. Okay? It wasn't until the late 1700s or the early 1800s when the Gregorian calendar became the accepted calendar on a global scale, on a wider used scale. So essentially, we are actually most likely missing well more than 6 years' time. It could probably be 2055 if you happen to have a time record stuffed in your nightside drawer from the beginning of time until now, to actually count the correct number of days. You could probably figure out what year we are in. But remember what Jubilee says, we will not find the path of years. Well, why won't we find the path of years? We're not going to find the path of years because both the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar had months. The Julian more so had months. Some months had 45 days. The current Gregorian calendar was great at cutting out entire weeks to make it fit. So you'd wake up, say Tuesday the 4th of February, and the next day was supposed to be Wednesday the 14th of February instead of Wednesday the 5th of February. So each calendar had its issues. So we have complete time frames where months are either way longer than they're supposed to be or way shorter than they should have been. So we're missing huge chunks of days between when the Creator's calendar was last used, which, like I said, I believe was around right before the children went into bondage, and today. Yeah. So we will never know what year it is. But the Bible does not say we will not find out what month it is or how the moon works again. It just says we don't know that. So what year is it? It is not, I repeat, not 2019. Sorry to everybody that partied like it was 1999 because you were at least 6 years too late. All right? We're closer to 2025, yet, like I said, we could be off by 10 years there, 20 years there, 30 years here, 100 years, we don't know. So we will never find the path of years. It doesn't say we will never, find the Creator's ordained days and how to calculate the moon correctly and all that good stuff again. But as of right now, we will never know what year it truly, truly is. All right, moving on. I hope so far you understand what my interpretation, anyway, of Enoch is trying to say. Before we move forward, let's not forget a few things. Pattern and order. The moon's path ordained, the sun's path ordained. Their allotted times. Also, don't forget, our current Gregorian calendar, the new day begins at midnight, which it really didn't. It began some hours before it. Okay? Meaning, if you're going to try and calculate, like I said, future 29 or 30s off of a man-made chart like the Navy has, because that's the closest thing that will actually give you accurate times. If you're looking for the setting of the sun and setting of the moon just prior to the 1/7, and your chart tells you that it sat on April 18th, the moon has sat, the sun has sat. So it's technically now the 19th of April. So you must remember that. And there's another major factor that we got to remember when we're going to calculate the calendar correctly. Don't forget that one. Remember, we must give the correct allotted days to the correct months. All right, so here's my, kindergarten spreadsheet again. You can see the highlighted blue. All right, the highlighted blue is when the Navy time charts correlate with the sun and the moon setting and what times they set. And it looks like an escalator, does it not? Up and down and up and down and up and down. Quite a few days. However, by now we should know that the fluctuation of the moon as to how much light it's giving or how long it gives light only goes between a 29 and a 30. You're not going to have a full moon, or a setting of a moon or setting of a sun in the Creator's calendar that's going to fall on the 2nd of a month or a 3rd of a month or the 15th or the 27th. It's going to fall either the 29th or the 30th every single month. Sometimes the 28th. So when converting over, don't forget, the sunset, it's a new day, and make sure you have the correct count. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Please feel free to put them in the comments below. And now what? Well, now, again, we're going to go back and we're going to lay out what Enoch is telling us in the Creator's calendar, in the Most High's ordained calendar. So here we go, back again. We have months 1, 2, and 3, 30, 30, 31, gates 4, 5, and 6. We've got our longest day of the year in the 3rd month right there that you can see, because the equinox occurred in pseudo-March, the 12th month, which is not, again, in this calendar. 30, 30, 31. Well, let's see. What do we got? Oh, look at that. Once we've established the correct ordained days and how they lay out, you can see your 7-day Sabbath. You can see them falling every 7 days. 7, 14, 21, 28. First month. Second month. Again, it's falling 7 days. So 5, 12, 19, 26. Third month, 7 days. 3, 10, 17, 24, and 31. At no point anywhere in Enoch does Enoch tell you that the moon dictates the Sabbaths. No, the moon dictates the year and the moon dictates the beginning of the month. It does not dictate the Sabbaths. Also, at no point in Enoch does Enoch say, count the morrow after, like we hear when we go to count the Omer for Shavuot. Okay? There are specific, if something is supposed to be changed specifically, generally in the Bible we're told how to make the change, such as counting the Omer. Count the morrow after, 49 Sabbaths, 7 Sabbaths for a total of 49 plus 1, how that works. Thirdly, you will also notice, if you're looking for holy days and feasts and observances and all that good stuff, I don't have counting the Omer or Shavuot on these calendars. Why? Because there's no specified month or day for either one of those. Simply, when you take the sickle to the grain, that's when you begin the count. If the grain's not in, you can't take the sickle to it and you can't start your count. Make sense? So there's no need for adding days, and there's no need for adding an entire month when you lay out the proper number of days that the Creator says, and you understand that the solar and the lunar calendar work as one calendar, and that you attribute the correct number of lunar lit nights that a 6-month period is supposed to have. 30, 30, 30, or 29, 29, 29, and any variation as long as there's 3 and 3 in a 6-month period. Few of the things that you will notice when you're looking at this. The 14th of the first month, we'll call it pseudo-Saturday. The 14th of the first month is pseudo-Saturday, if you look at it that way, from here until the end of time, as it was pseudo-Saturday from when the calendar began until now. Okay? The order and the pattern is what you need to pay attention to. Attributing the correct number of days to each month and making sure you start correctly with your solstices and your equinoxes. Now I'll tell you what, I'm telling you everything that you should be doing, but it took me a lot of trial and error before I got to this point, okay? It didn't happen overnight. It took me almost 2 years for myself to be able to see this, okay? Always remember that the solstices and the equinoxes fall on a 31st day, whether it's the 31st day of the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, or the 12th month. Those allotted days are for your solstices and your equinoxes, period. I hope I've established that and shown you my interpretation of what he's saying and how that works correctly. All right, moving on, months 4, 5, and 6. An exact duplicate of months 1, 2, and 3. Of course, obviously without the, specified, without the certain feast days and things like that. You still have your 7, 14, 21, 28 falling the 4th month, which is the first month of the first quarter. You still have your Sabbaths falling 5, 12, 19, and 26 in the 5th month, which is the 2nd month of your 2nd quarter. And the 6th month, 3, 10, 17, 24, and 31, your 3rd month of your 2nd quarter. It all falls exactly the same. Order and pattern. Okay, so are you ready for your mind to be blown? My mind is going to be blown. Your mind. My mind was just blown this morning because it, didn't really dawn on me. It did sort of dawn on me, but I hadn't put 2 and 2 together. All right. So, as I said, once you calculate the solstices and the equinoxes and you have the correct number of days allotted to each month as ordained. A little story. It was Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and waiting for my local weatherman to come on, and he comes on and he says, "Oh, today is officially the longest day of the year." I was like, wait, what? Let me pause that for a minute, because Google told me that the longest day of the year already occurred back in June 20th or 21st. So wait a minute, now it's the 2nd of July. Wait, that's like a 12-day difference. I go back to the Army time, or the Navy time charts, and lo and behold. So, not only was it not a Tuesday, but we weren't even technically technically up until that point, we weren't even in summer yet. If you remember, a solstice or an equinox only ever falls on the 31st day of the 3rd, 6th, and 9th, and 12th month, meaning that equinox was technically ordained. It was technically the 31st. If you remember, the 31st on the months is a 7th-day Sabbath. This dude was telling me this on what I believe to be Tuesday. However, I'm sitting on my couch and it's actually the 31st, a 7th-day Sabbath. Not a Tuesday, a 7th-day Sabbath day. So not only are we not in the correct year, not only are we not in the correct season, not only are we not on the correct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we aren't even on the correct Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going to take a look and I'll show you what I mean. 10, 11, and 12 look exactly like 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's very organized and it's in a repeating pattern. Those sound like 2 of the qualities in which my Creator possesses perfectly. So in case you need to look at it in a different layout or in a different format, 1, 4, 7, and 10 side by side, 1 through 30. The only difference you may encounter, like I said, will be the lunar count, which could be a 30-day or a 29-day. Now, if you have a 29-day lunar count, let's say, let me see. So month 7 has a 29-day lunar count. That means the 30th is still there. You don't just chop off the calendar and tomorrow's the 1st. No, the 30th is there. The 30th will be a night when it's going to be awfully dark out. You're only going to see the stars. There's not going to be any light coming from the moon. Does that make sense? You don't chop the day off and start with 1, or chop the day off and wait until you see the 1/7 crescent. You can accurately, if you have established the solstices and you have the correct order and pattern, you can accurately say, I'm missing it. You know, there's no moonlight tonight. Okay, I've got a 29, or there is moonlight tonight on the 30th day, and it goes right into the 1st. And if a 29 falls on a 31, then you'll go the day of the evening of 30 and the evening of 31 without moonlight. Does that make sense? That's where your 10-day difference comes from. The moon doesn't fall from the sky. The moon doesn't jump off its track or play peekaboo with the sun, like I said. It simply is void of light. The day or the night, whatever you want to call it, is still there. It's still ordained on the heavenly tablets because the moon has the same path as the sun, the same allotted period, so to say, the same 30 days. Okay? Here you have months 2, 5, 8, and 11, all exactly the same. And if you were to lay these right on top of 1, 4, 7, and 10, you would see the larger picture, so to say, or the larger pattern and the larger order that they ultimately make in the end. And months 3, 6, 9, and 12, exactly the same, and they finish out, each quarter finishes out perfectly to move into transition into the very next quarter, which matches up with the quarter before and the quarter after. Pattern and order. So sliding that 13th new moon, what happens? All right. And keeping a 29-day lunar count and having the incorrect number of days a month. If you notice, I got like 2 red circles and an oval on here. Look at your red dates in the first of each of the months. The one on the left is for next year, and the one on the right was for this year. All right. April 3-4, April 3-4. When you accurately count either your 30 or your 29-day lunar cycles, and you give the correct number of days to every month as ordained, well, look at that. The new moon occurs next year on the same day, the first day of the first month, pseudo-Sunday, so to call it. Okay. The new moon this year, according to calendar Gregorian, fell on, I think it was like 6/7 or 5/6 or 4/3, something like that, of April. Last year, it fell, what was it, 14, around the 14th, so 10 days of the Gregorian 10 days, not the Creator's 10 days, because you get mixed up here in just a second, because if you look at next year, 10 days from the 5th of April comes to the 25th of April. Okay. However, because we slide that 13th new moon in there, that's why we kind of feel like we're staying on track with our seasons, because we're actually giving more days in the year than they're supposed to have. So we feel like spring is spring, except this past year didn't feel like spring was quite spring yet. I'm in the northern hemisphere close to Canada, and we still had snow in April and whatnot. And I know a lot of other northern places did have late snow. Well, the reason you're having late snow, as I just showed you just a few minutes ago, was the solstice for the summer didn't occur until at least 12 days after when we thought the solstice was supposed to occur. So right there, we were already 12 days out of our season. We're not in the right season. We're not in the right month. We're not in the right day of the week. We're not even on the right number of week. Can you see the issues? And can you see the pattern that the Creator tried to establish for us? Technically, it's still established. We just ignore it, I suppose. Okay, so leap years, absolutely worthless. No point in them. 13 new moons and 12 seasons, absolutely worthless, no point in them. Adar 2s, absolutely no point in them. If you give the right number of days, 364, 30, 30, 31, throughout the entire calendar, and you calculate the lunar cycle with either 30s or 29s, heck, you don't even have to. Once you've established the equinoxes, you don't have to go any further from there as long as you set the days right. Because you can walk out on your porch on the 28th, and you can watch and see whether or not the 29th and the 30th you have 2 nights or 1 more night of lunar lit nights, because you know the pattern. Immediately following the first month, obviously comes the second month, which obviously the first month's only 30 days. So if you got no moon on the 29th, you know you're going to have a dark moon on the 30th because the 30th still exists, and your 1/7 crescent is coming the day after the 30th. Or if it was 30 days up there, you know you're still getting that 1/7 crescent the next day, because you're not going to have 31.
Mommy?
Hold on. Furthermore, what does this mean? Well, I hope I've established so far the order and the pattern as I have interpreted from Enoch, as the Creator has laid out. So what that means is Passover never changes. Passover has been and will be always the 14th day of the first month. Trigger warning. Cover your ears. Remove small children if need be. The 14th day of the first month we've established is always a Sabbath day. It's a Sabbath. It's a 7th-day Sabbath. We're calling it pseudo-Saturday to make it easy. Meaning there is no way that Yeshua ever rose from his grave on any given Sunday after he was crucified. Shush. As you can see here, the first day of the first month, always the first day of the first month, pseudo-Sunday. The 14th day of the first month is always the 14th day of the first month, pseudo-Saturday. It's a Sabbath day. Pseudo-Sunday falls immediately after that, the 15th. That's not 3 days and 3 nights. The soonest he could have risen would be the 17th. People forget. Passover is the 14th, unleavened bread is the 15th, and it runs to the 21st. Technically, there is an entire, it's a 8-day Sabbath, okay? It's an 8-day Sabbath week, so to say. So when it says, you know, it wasn't the Sabbath, people assume, you know, well, it has to be this day because she went and she bought her oils, so she can't buy her oils on the Sabbath. Well, that's correct. There's specified days, usually the first day and the last day of each of the week-long stretches of celebration that are ordained, that are recognized by the Creator, that are His Sabbaths and His holy days. The first and last days are considered high holy Sabbaths, where zero work, no servile, no nothing, no work will be done in that week. The first day and the last day. But the middle portion, you're allowed to do some work. Okay, it's just the first day and the last day. So the Sabbath, technically you'd have 2 days there not to do anything, because you got the Passover the 14th, and then unleavened bread the 15th. So 2 days in a row where you can't do a whole lot. Then you've got the 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, where, yeah, you can do some more. You can do more than what you would be able to on a 7th-day Sabbath or at the beginning. And then 21, again, is the high holy Sabbath, or whatever you want to call it, where no servile work will be done. Okay, so if you fail to read the Torah and you fail to understand that there's a difference, but there are more than just the 7th-day Sabbaths, that all of his ordained days and appointed times are considered Sabbaths, you'll miss the point that he never rose on a Sunday, and that you can do work throughout the week of a Sabbath week, just not working and servile work on the first and last days of the beginning and the end of those celebrations, if that makes sense. Furthermore, what you might notice, if you haven't by now, I'm about to tell you, a new moon and a full moon will never occur on a 7th-day Sabbath. The Most High tells us multiple times He does not want to be worshipped the way the other nations, the pagans, the heathens, whatever you want to call them, worship their little gods, okay? What do the vast majority of these other nations practice. They practice lunar worship. They go out on the new moon, they go out on the full moon, they perform ceremonies, they do their prayers, they sacrifice their people, they eat their young, because the moon is giving them power and strength and da-da-da-da-da-da. In just a moment, I'm going to show you a new moon and a full moon will never occur on a 7th-day Sabbath. So if you're sitting at dinner, if you're sitting down at the table, and it's Sabbath, or you think it's Sabbath, and the 1/7 crescent is there, or a full moon is out, it is not a pseudo-Saturday 7th-day Sabbath. As you can see here, if you look closely, the first of the first month, so the new moon, it's a pseudo-Sunday. It's Sunday, the sun has set for Sabbath. And now it is the first day of the month. It is the next day. As you can see in the second month, the new moon falls on a pseudo-Tuesday. And as you can see in the third month, the new moon falls on a pseudo-Thursday. As we know, this is a repeating pattern of order. Therefore, you know months 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 will never have a new moon falling on a Sabbath also. You can also do the same thing for the first 3 months. Look for the 15s. Now they can fall the day before or the day after, but they will not fall on a Sabbath day. The first month the new moon falls on, obviously, the 15th, because it's always the 15th, pseudo-Sunday. Okay, the sun has already set for the Sabbath, and now it's the next day, that evening, pseudo-Sunday. The Sabbath is over. The second month, if you look for the 15, it is a pseudo-Tuesday. And the third month, if you look for the 15, it is a pseudo-Wednesday. So, if you're sitting down with the family for Sabbath, and you've got a new moon or a full moon out there, it is not the Sabbath. Enoch 75. These are the leaders of the chiefs of thousands, which are over all creation and over all the stars, with the 4 which are added and never separated from the place allotting them, according to the complete calculation of the year. And these serve 4 days, which are not calculated in the calculation of the year. Respecting them, men err greatly. Men greatly err. For these luminaries truly serve in the dwelling place of the world, one in the first, one in the third, one in the fourth, and one in the 6th gate, so the harmony is complete in 364 days. Enoch's saying 2 things here. At the beginning, he tells you, yes, you need to include them. Then he's telling you, man is screwing up, he's not including them. Then he's going back to telling you, yes, you're supposed to include these. They're included. So don't misinterpret what Enoch is trying to tell you, because you're like, okay, they're there, but we're not supposed to count them, but they've got allotted places to be counted. These luminaries are supposed to be counted with the 31s. All right, some more subtle verses from Enoch and Jubilee that we'll be discussing here shortly. Men err in respect to the moon and the stars and the sun. Why men? If you notice how the Bible is written, when it is referring to a gender, they refer to the gender as men, as opposed to daughters, we being us women, or sons, If they're referring to mankind as a whole, they will say mankind, or all the children, or that type of thing. So Enoch, when he says men err in Jubilee, it is men. Why do I assume because every calendar that we know today has been made by a man. Our Gregorian calendar, I'm pretty sure Pope Gregory was a man. The Julian calendar, pretty sure Caesar was a man. Pretty sure the pharaohs in Egypt, because men back then were and held much more of esteem than women, and in some countries today they still are, but men have created the calendar. Men err. Okay? I hope that I have showed you that thus far, all the issues that we have had with this current Gregorian calendar format, and all pointed out some of the problems that individuals trying to interpret Enoch and trying to come up with their quote-unquote Enochian calendar. I hope I've explained to you where they are erring, at least my interpretation, I suppose, of where they are erring. You know, there could be millions of people out there that don't agree with my interpretation. I'm not going to have, not everyone's going to agree. Some of you are going to be like, oh, wow, I see it. Yeah, plain as day right there. And others who have been studying this for 20 years or so and who believe that there are lunar, you know, celebrations of Sabbath on, you know, the, what is it, the 15th and the 22nd and, you know, all that good stuff. They're going to still hold fast to those thoughts and their interpretation, because that's just the way, I mean, we have free will. We can do that. You know, you don't have to believe what I'm saying. You don't have to believe what anyone else is saying. You get to believe what you want to believe, so to say, or, you know, think what you want to think. That's the great thing. You know, our Creator gave us free will. So this is merely my interpretation of Enoch. Moving on, Enoch 75 continued, and the days Uriel showed me, the angel whom Yahuwah of glory appointed over all of the luminaries. Skipping down. Thus Uriel showed me 12 gates open for the circuit of the chariots of the sun, and from which the rays of the sun shoot forth and proceed heat over the earth, when they are opened in their stated seasons, for they are for the winds of and the ruach for the dew, and when in their season they are open in heavens at the extremities. 12 gates I beheld. All right, so we discussed the gates 1 through 6. Those are for the sun and the moon and the stars. Now we're talking about gates 1 through 12. 12 additional gates. They're, you know, on the north, on the south, on the east, and on the west. Think of them like a big clock. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, okay? And they go 1, 2, 3, right up the line. I assume. I can't tell you, I can't promise you they go 1, 2, 3 straight up in a line like that. However, you know, because we can't see that. But to get a picture, I can assume they go 1, 2, 3 up the line. Okay. These gates that he's starting to talk about in 75, 76, and 77, I want to say, this is where we experience our weather, and this is where we experience our blessings or our curses or our, you know, or equity or destruction, or so this is where those shoot out from. These 12 gates, mind you, also have many, 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 many windows. And Enoch never goes on to describe what happens in these windows or comes forth from these windows. But he says each of these 12 gates has, there's many windows, you know, to the left and to the right and everything like that. So you can feel free to read Enoch 75. 6 and 7 at your will. Just pause and go if you'd like the whole thing. But we'll skip ahead to basically what Enoch is trying to tell us. 75 continued. Like I said, many windows are also open on the right and the left of these 12 gates, all right? What I want to point out too is there's also gates from which the stars go forth according to their set number, and likewise chariots. One of these is greater than all, which goes around the whole world. Okay, mind you what we are talking about. We are talking about the gates and the stars right now. Different set of gates and stars. If Enoch were referring to the sun being this that goes around the whole world, he would say the sun, or he would say the great luminary, or he would actually say the sun's name, because the sun does have 2 different names. However, or he'd say the orb. Did I say the orb already? I can't remember. In the context of this scripture and in what he's talking about, he is referring to a luminary, a star. Okay, he's not referring to the sun. Enoch 76, like I said, you can read that for yourself. Okay, the 12 open gates and what comes forth. All right, whether it's heat or whether it's drought or whether it's rain or whether it's perdition or whether it's whatever. Fruitfulness, health, and dew, and all that good stuff. Feel free to pause and read through that. Continuing, but from the middle gate proceeds grateful odor, dew, rain, health, and life. Oh, well, remember where the middle gate is. Think of it as the Tropic of Capricorn. Think of it as the equator, the outer ring, so to say, of the equator. 4 would probably be the inner ring of the equator. Okay, what seasons are going on during 3 and 4? Let me see. Spring and fall. What seasons have the greatest smells? Well, depending on where you are. I assume if you're in, like, I don't know, Arizona or something, they probably don't smell as different. But up where I am, close to Canada, our springs and falls smell absolutely amazing. In summer, it's too stinking hot. You got nothing but humid, hot heat, and maybe you'll have the smell of grass. You might get a wafting of, like, you know, a flower if you walk up to it and purposely smell it, but you're not smelling all that lovely life coming forth, if that makes sense. And again, in autumn smells amazing in New Hampshire. Okay, the colors, everything, just mind-blowing place to be in autumn, New Hampshire. Grateful odors, 3 and 4, spring and fall. Enoch 77, he kind of just goes on to describe all the stuff that's happening in those windows and certain things that you can see and blah. I did not get too far in depth in 75, 76, and 77 because didn't think I really needed to, nor did I want to. That wasn't my focus. My focus was the Creator's calendar, not Enoch's calendar, not my calendar, not Joe's calendar, our Most High's ordained calendar. '77 continued. Feel free to pause and read through it.